Go ahead, Russell.
All right, I'm going to make this my closing statement.
Okay. Yeah, I guess we'll have to wrap it up
now. We are going to wrap it up.
Going back to the question of whether utilitarianism matters or not, this is something that apparently everyone else disagrees with me on instead of Dennis.
Okay.
But I believe that when you have a scientific worldview, utilitarianism is justifiably tied into to our recognition of what the truth is out there. Sure, it's true that we can't really know if we're all living in a computer program and there's no real world. But the fact that we treat the world as real constitutes a judgment call that basically the most useful and therefore the simplest and therefore, according to Occam's razor, the most likely thing to be true is that the world really works the way we think it does. When new evidence comes in, we change our perception of the world. But at no point do I think we believe that the world acts one way and act as if it worked another way.
Except for Dennis. In position. I mean, you have to admit, Dennis does that.
Earlier, you said,
Me?
Jeff, that we do, that utilitarianism doesn't necessarily have anything to do with truth. And I'm going to take the position that if you look at...
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Go ahead.
But if you take science seriously, then it's generally the case that the most useful explanation is the one that's most deemed to be probably correct.
Okay.
I think that there is no situation from a scientific standpoint where we think one way and act another way. I think that is, at its core, I don't want to say intellectually dishonest, because I have great respect for Dennis's intelligence and his honesty. But I think there's something that is contrary to the scientific worldview in acting that way. So I think that if you deem it useful to believe that we have free will, then that is a strong point in favor of regarding that as basically accurate.
I actually agree with everything you just said.
Okay. And since I'm wrapping up my contribution, I'd like to make a strong book recommendation, which is The Mind's Eye. That's spelled with the letter I, as in the self inside the mind. It's a collection of essays by philosophers that was edited by Douglas Hofstadter and Daniel Dennett, two people whom I respect very much. And I think it's a thrilling read. And anyone who wants to explore this topic further would really be doing themselves a favor by reading that book. Okay. And now I'm done.
I'm going to make a final statement. You're saying there's no such thing as blame, right? There's no such thing as... Is that right? Is that the right word? Which word would you rather use?
Credit and blame exists.
Yeah.
As it's as intrinsically meaningful as crediting and blaming the computer for outputting what it outputs.
I understand that you believe that credit and blame are merely arbitrary distinctions.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Okay. However, the problem of free will, this is from Wikipedia, the problem of free will is the problem of whether rational agents exercise control over their own actions and decisions. Where is it? In ethics, the question is whether individuals can be held morally accountable for their actions.
Right.
So the free will question is about credit and blame. As soon as we start talking about free will, we are talking about credit and blame.
Right. And since I declared that they're arbitrary, free will vanishes in a puff of smoke.
But no, it doesn't. Not just because you declare it arbitrary. I mean, Dennis, is there such a thing as blue? You know that the distinction between blue and purple is arbitrary.
Yes.
Is there such a thing as blue? Really, if you're going to play this arbitrariness game, don't give me a look like, oh, I'm being so mean to you.
I'll give you a look, roll my eyes, all I like.
If you want to argue that something doesn't count because it's an arbitrary distinction, you better be prepared to go all the way.
Blue is a useful word to apply to light of a certain frequency.
Free will.
Yes. But guess what? There's no intrinsic blue.
Okay.
So there's no intrinsic free will.
But things that are blue exist. There are blue things, aren't there?
Yes, you can point at them.
Okay.
His shirt is blue. Now, point at free will.
Point at a thing with
point
free
at
will?
Point at free will. That's what you're doing.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
I'm calling blue a characteristic, and I'm calling free will a characteristic.
Yeah, you
I can point at a thing that has free will. There's one right there. It's a useful distinction. If we're going to talk about blame and credit at all, then we are already in the realm. You can't throw it away because they're arbitrary.
We're into an argument again. I thought you were giving a final statement.
All right.
Started off by asking a question.
That's my final statement. If you're talking about free will at all, you're talking about blame and credit. You can't just get rid of them and say there's no such thing. That's the subject we're talking about.
Okay. As this argument, here's. Oh, do you want to give your final statement, or should I?
We can let Dennis go last if he wants. That would be fair.
I'll not only let Dennis go last. I'm not going to bother because I've repeated myself a couple times and we're way over.
Okay.
Yeah. As usually ends up in this conversation, I will agree we have free will if the room will agree that computers have free will.
No, there's a guy. It depends what kind of program. A simple, a simple program that says hello, 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 hello doesn't have any free will. But you could, in theory, build a program that is a system that makes decisions that are not pre-chosen, and I would say that has free will. Depends what kind.
And my objection would be similar, in that there are certain components that I think are required in order to have anything that is worth calling free will. One of them is self-awareness, that there is some idea, some concept of self, some entity that feels that it is a part of the decision-making process. Not that it is the sole one making decisions, but that it's part of the process. And that is a component.
I'll jump perspectives again, though, but say I fail to see how that addresses how the atoms and molecules of your brain act in completely deterministic fashions.
It doesn't.
Well then,
and
you're a machine, and the computer's a machine.
Agreed.
Consciousness is irrelevant.
And a rock is a collection of atoms, too.
Right.
Consciousness is relevant.
No, it's irrelevant.
We can all tell.
No, it's irrelevant to the issue of free will.
No, it's not.
See, I think consciousness and self-awareness.
Round and round we go.
Well, anyway.
All right, Dennis, do you have a final statement?
That's it.
Okay.
I'm done.